What is going on, college basketball fans? Welcome back to another video. Today we're doing our updated March Madness predictions video where I take a bracketology and I fill it out from the first round all the way to the national championship. This time we are filling out my personal bracketology that I made and did a video on just a couple of days ago. Now some of these seed lines do need updated, but it is good enough to do a March Madness predictions video. So I'm hyped to get into it. I just want to say subscribe if you guys are new. Hit that like button if you guys enjoy. Let's get it started. So here we have our bracket, and we're going to fill it out all the way to the national championship game. So, of course, we do have our number one overall seed, which is the Purdue Boilermakers. There is definitely a debate for Yukon here. If you think Yukon is the number one overall seed, I would not be mad at you. Purdue's looking really good right now. They have a really good non-con resume, playing very good basketball right now. Purdue is going to get the win, of course, over Eastern Kentucky or Norfolk State. Now for that one, I would probably go with Norfolk State to get the win there, and then Purdue to defeat them. I don't think Purdue will lose 2 years in a row to a 16 seed. That would be pretty insane. I think they're prepared for this. I think they could actually make a deep run this year. I think that Lance Jones makes a huge difference. He is such a beast for them. And yeah, I have Purdue moving on to the next round. Next up, we do have Oklahoma versus Indiana State. And this is an amazing 8-9 matchup. Oklahoma looked really good in the non-con, even though their strength of schedule was not that, hard in the non-con. They still looked pretty good, and they had a couple of pretty good non-con wins. So I like Oklahoma whenever we get to March Madness. I think the Big 12 has done a little bit of a number on them, but they should be able to get a bid into the tournament as an 8 seed right here versus Indiana State. And Indiana State's been playing very good. I like this matchup a lot. I got to go with Indiana State here. I got to go with Indiana State, though, to get a win over Oklahoma. I just think that their all-around team, they're playing great. They're playing like one of the best mid-majors in college basketball right now. For them to probably get their first win since Larry Bird played there back in the 80s, that would be something else. When Larry Bird took them all the way to the national championship game, I would love to see them get a win in March Madness. And that man, Robbie, oh my goodness, would America fall in love with him. He is a hooper. Next up, we got Kraton as our 5 seed going up against our 12-seeded Appalachian State. This is a tough one because I like Appalachian State a lot. Although I don't know if I can trust the Sun Belt to get a win in March Madness. For some reason, I just don't know if I can do it. Kraton, they have such a good team. I'm a big fan of Trey Alexander, Ryan Cockbrenner, and of course Baylor Shireman, who's been on an absolute tear this season. They also got Stephen Ashworth. Yeah, I like Kraton probably to win this game. Man, I really like App State, though. I just don't think this is the best matchup for them. I am going to go with Kraton here to pull it out as the 5 seed and survive our first 5-12 matchup. Next up, we got South Carolina going up against Akron. Akron is a very sneaky team. The MAC conference always gets sneaky come March Madness, and Akron is actually a pretty good team. I think it's going to be them or probably Toledo to come out of the MAC conference. And South Carolina, yes, they're playing really good right now, but something's telling me I don't know if I can trust the South Carolina team too much. I'm going to go with Akron to pull off a big 13-4 upset over the Gamecocks. And I know the Gamecocks, they were projected to be last place in the SEC this year. Now they're first place right now. They're absolutely killing it, and they could definitely prove me wrong. I mean, we're still in February. We got time to make our official predictions. If South Carolina continues to play at this rate, it's going to be hard to pick them to lose first round. But right now, I think Akron's sneaky. I think Akron's a sneaky team. Give me the Zips to move on to the round of 32. Next up, we got TCU versus Butler. This is a very fun matchup. This feels like an even matchup. Butler has been hot. This feels like a game that is either going to end in a buzzer beater or end in overtime or both. Like, I could 100% see this one coming down to the wire and being an absolute fight. I want to pick Butler so bad because it is so nice to see Butler basketball back into just the March Madness conversation and being a at least somewhat decent team I'd say top half team in the Big East easily. It is so good to see, and I would love to see them get a win. However, I do think this TCU team is being slept on a little bit. I think Jameer Nelson Jr., he can have his moments. I think Emmanuel Miller is the X factor that has been improved this year, really stepped up for him. I like TCU here. They have so many great guards, man. Next up, we got Auburn versus Cornell. I have Cornell over Princeton coming out of the Ivy League, so this would be a tough task here for Auburn. They have shown that they could lose to some mid-majors. They lost to Appalachian State pretty bad earlier in the year. Cornell could be sneaky. We saw Princeton as a 15 seed last year coming out of the Ivy League be a sneaky team and make it all the way to the Sweet 16. I could see Cornell upsetting Auburn 110%. I'm not going to pull the trigger on this because I do like Auburn. I think they have a solid squad. I like Jalen Williams. I like Janai Broome. Awesome front court. They have good guards too. So good defensively as well. I like Auburn here. I like Auburn here to move on to the next round, although I could see Cornell being able to pull that one off. Next up, we got FAU versus Northwestern. FAU has been a questionable team this year, to say the least. I mean, the amount of teams that they've lost to that they shouldn't have, especially on the road, like, they have definitely been underwhelming. They're one of the teams that has been more underwhelming that people aren't really talking about. A lot of people talk about Arkansas is the big one that has been underwhelming. Michigan State has been underwhelming, but FAU has been also very underwhelming. I could see them getting it together here by the time we get to March Madness, but I think Northwestern, you cannot mess with them. You cannot mess around with them. They have some veteran guards, and they could get it done. This is going to be a high-scoring game. 100%, this game is going to be in the high 80s. And I think I'm going to go with Northwestern. I like their guards, man. I like Boo Buie. I like Ryan Langmore. I like this Northwestern team. And I know FAU has great guards too. I'm going to go with Northwestern here to pull it off. Next up, we got Kansas versus Youngstown State. And the Penguins making it in here. I don't think they stand much of a chance against Kansas. I think Kansas is going to demolish them here and move on to the round of 32. Let's go ahead and finish out this region. So we have Purdue versus Indiana State. Everybody is going to be riding. America is going to be riding with Indiana State in this one to pull off an upset. I think it could be close. Get people's hopes up. Like, oh my gosh, is Indiana State really going to pull it off? But then I got Purdue winning. I mean, Zach Edey is going to be a tall task for anyone on the Sycamores. And like I said, I think Lance Jones has been such a difference maker, energy-wise, shooting-wise. Just a guy that can create his own shot for this Purdue team is massive. It is absolutely massive because majority of their offense comes from a Zach Edey post-up, a Zach Edey kick out of the post, a Zach Edey offensive rebound. To have Lance Jones, who can create his own shot off the dribble, is amazing. And I got to give some credit to Braden Smith, too. I think that he has done better about that this year as far as creating his own shot, driving when it's there, finishing in the lane. I like Purdue here in this one to move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we got Kraton versus Akron. Can Akron continue to make a run here as our 13 seed? Is this our Cinderella? I could see it happening, but I am, however, going to go with Kraton. I think Kraton's going to be too much for him here. I would like to see an Akron Cinderella run, but Ryan Cockburner down low, very underrated defender, just a paint beast down there, man. Going to be able to block shots, protect the rim. Trey Alexander is a great defender. Baylor Shireman could be a sleeper as far as a player that can just take over March Madness and lead his team on a deep run. And I need to see that Ryan Cockburner versus Zach Edey matchup. Let's see it in the Sweet 16. Next up, we got TCU versus Auburn. Another great matchup. I mean, come on. This would be another great matchup. A player that I didn't talk about yet here on Auburn, Aiden Holloway, the freshman, a stud. I think this could be a game he could take over. TCU sneaky, though. I could see them pulling this one off. And Auburn's been untrustworthy, man. They've been very untrustworthy, especially on the road. And they haven't played the toughest non-con schedule, but neither has TCU, So this one is a tough one. I think Auburn's front court helps them prevail here. And I am going to go with Auburn to move on. I don't think TCU has the front court to compete with Jalen Williams and Janai Broome. It would be a close game. It would be a great game. I'm going to take Auburn here to move on. Next up, we got Northwestern versus Kansas. Can Northwestern pull it off? Back to the front court, man. I mean, that's hard to say, though, because Northwestern, on paper, does not have a great front court. But they beat Purdue this year, who has Zach Edey, who has Trey Kaufman-Renn. And not only did they beat him once, but they almost beat him a second time in Mackey. That game went to overtime. It was a very close game. So, yeah, Northwestern, on paper, they don't have the best front court. So you might be thinking, man, Hunter Dickinson is going to cook up. But not so fast, This could be a sneaky upset pick. I am going to go with Kansas, not because of the front court matchup, but because Kevin McCullough is the best player on Kansas this year. It is not Hunter Dickinson. I truly, truly believe that Kevin McCullough is their best player, and he is killing it. He will help them prevail here in this game and get it done. Next up, we have Purdue versus Kraton, that key matchup that I was wanting to see. Zach Edey versus Ryan Cockbrenner would be amazing. I need to see that. I need to see how Ryan Cockbrenner defends Zach Edey, because if he can get some stops, if Trey Alexander can get some stops on Lance Jones, Stephen Ashworth maybe wins the battle between him and Braden Smith. If two of those three things happen, come on. And Baylor Shireman is there. He can go off. Oh my goodness, man. I could see Kraton pulling this off. The only thing is, I think Purdue has the better depth. 100%. I think they have the better depth. Kraton, they've struggled with that. They've struggled with their depth. Man, I kind of want to pick this upset. I'm going to pick Purdue here to move on to the Elite Eight. But trust me, guys, if Ryan Cockbrenner can defend Zach Edey, hold him under 20, get boards over him, block him a few times, get that momentum, get that fast break going, Kraton can do it, man. Especially if Trey Alexander, who's one of the better wing defenders in college ball, can guard Lance Jones. Kraton could 100% win that game, but I am going to go with the Boilers to go on down to the Elite Eight. Next up, we got Auburn versus Kansas. Very, very fun matchup. We all know Auburn, the blue blood killers on their 2019 run to the national championship. Can they kill another one here in Kansas? And I do believe that Kansas is prone to being beat in the first three rounds. I do think that if they can get the right matchup, I think Kansas is definitely prone to being beat, especially because I think Janai Broome is a very great defender. He's going to get blocks. He can guard Hunter Dickinson 100%. You put Jalen Williams, who's probably going to be on McCullough, but then you got to look out for guys like KJ Adams, who can come on and go on a little run out of nowhere. I just think that Kansas has a hole where they thought Nick Timberlake was going to fill, because they don't have Arterio Morris, because he got cut due to some reason with the law. And I think there's a hole there, because Arterio Morris was going to be a beast on Kansas this year, coming into his sophomore year, or his junior year, I think. I think there's something there for Kansas to get upset, and I'm gonna go with Auburn here to move on. I know they've been struggling a little bit lately. They just got beat bad by Florida, but I think they have the squad to be able to pull off a game like this, and I think Kansas could have some holes. I think Harris as point guard, I don't want to say he's underwhelming, because he is a great playmaker. He's a great point guard. But slightly underwhelming, I feel like. I think we expected him to maybe improve a little bit as far as scoring and stuff. But Kevin McCullough has taken him a huge jump up. Hunter Dickinson has been a beast, but is it going to be enough? I'm going to have Auburn be able to get it done here. Then, to go to the Final Four, we have Auburn. We have Purdue. Great matchup going on here. Another tough front court battle for this Purdue team and Zach Edey when they have to go up against Jalen Williams, Johni Broome especially. Johni Broome versus Zach Edey is going to be amazing. Another great shot blocker to go up against Edey. Who is going to get it done? I could see Auburn maybe pulling it off. I just think Lance Jones has a big game in this one. Some's telling me Lance Jones. I didn't even mention guys like Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis, because I don't really have too much trust in them. I think the big three is Zach Edey, of course, Lance Jones, Braden Smith. Those are your three key guys. Now, Fletcher Lawyer, Mason Gillis, Trey Kaufman-Wren. If those guys can, provide you some great minutes and score some, then Purdue could definitely win the national championship. I am going to pick Purdue to win it here. Zach Edey has a big game against Johni Broome. I think that Aiden Holloway could play pretty well against Braden Smith, but I think the key matchup here, not only Johni Broome versus Zach Edey, but it is going to be Katie Johnson versus Lance Jones. Those are both energy guys. Who's going to play better? I think I have more faith in Lance Jones right now, and I think it's going to be the difference. Give me Purdue to make it to the Final Four. Next region, we do have Yukon as our number 1 seed, and they're going up against either Southern or St. Thomas, which I did actually make a mistake in my bracketology because St. Thomas is actually not eligible to make the NCAA tournament due to stupid rules because they are new to Division I basketball, which really sucks. So for this case, Southern would win, and then we would have Yukon, of course, not lose to the 16 seed. I mean, they're as good as they're playing right now. Can't have that. Next up, we have Clemson versus Florida. Two very, very dangerous teams that I could see potentially going on a deep run. Florida is definitely a sleeper. I feel like not many people are talking about the Gators here right now. And Clemson too. Clemson is a team that played a very, very strong non-conference record. Like, they had a great non-conference record. They got into ACC play, started not doing as great. But I do think that kind of plays to their benefit as far as the NCAA tournament, because you're not going to see anybody from your conference at least until the Sweet 16 at the earliest, and that's if they even get there with you. So I think that plays to Clemson's benefit, and I'm going to take Clemson here to defeat Florida and move on. I just think P.J. Hall, absolute stud, Gerard, a beast, man. They got some hoopers on this team. I could see Clemson making a little bit of a run and going up against Yukon, where the past 5 years or so, the defending national champion has lost in the second round or earlier. That's something to look out for Yukon. Something to look out for. Next up, we got BYU versus South Florida. South Florida, actually, I have them winning the American this year and getting themselves a bid steal here as the 12th seed. And going up against BYU, I could see this as a potential upset. I mean, South Florida, a mid-major that not many people are talking about, but I think they're like 10-1 in the American right now. Absolutely killing it. They're in first place in the American, and let's do it, man. Let's have South Florida move on and defeat our first 12/5, the Bulls, right into the round of 32. Next up, we got Dayton going up against McNeese State. McNeese State is a team that I really, really, really like. I believe they have Shahada Wells, the transfer from TCU, who's been playing really, really great at point guard. If they get the right matchup come March, assuming they win their league and get a bid, if they get the right matchup, I will be taking McNeese State in my official bracket when the bracket comes out, if they get the right matchup. Now, for Dayton, I do not believe this is the right matchup for them. I think I like Dayton a lot. I like this squad, and I am going to have them move on right here to the next round. I just think Darren Holmes, absolute stud. One of the better players in college basketball, I believe. He's killing it, and the Flyers move on. Next up, we got Kentucky versus Cincinnati, and this would be a great matchup. I think Kentucky, they might not even deserve this 6th seed. You see, they just lost at home in Rupp to Gonzaga the other day. That happened after I came out with this bracketology, and they're just not playing great. They have horrible defense. They got absolutely pieced up by a simple pick and roll by Graham Ike and Ryan Nembhard the entire game, and they just never adjusted, never stopped it, and that definitely worries me. As soon as they play somebody good, they could be making an exit, but the only thing is their offense, very explosive, could get them a couple wins, could even lead them deep into the tournament. I think it will be enough to get them past Cincinnati, and I am going to pick them to win. I just really like Reed Shepherd. I like Antonio Reeves. Trey Mitchell was not playing in that Gonzaga game, which I think could definitely played a factor because he would have definitely tried to stop some of those pick and rolls. But still, you should not be losing to Gonzaga, a weaker Gonzaga team this year at home. Like, come on, you got to play some defense. And yeah, Kentucky definitely needs to play some defense. Rob Dillingham, another freshman who's amazing. How far can their offense carry him? I think it can get them here past Cincinnati to the next round. Next up, we got Wisconsin versus Vermont. Okay, I'm not going to lie to you. Wisconsin has been stinking it up lately, but I like AJ Storr. I like Tyler Wall. I do like this Wisconsin team quite a bit, actually. And I could see them going on a little bit of a run. I am going to pick them to win. But the Catamounts, they're sneaky. It seems like they're in the tournament every year, winning their league. When are they going to pull off the upset? Because it's going to happen one of these years. Wisconsin's not a bad draw for a 3 seed, 3 versus 14. They've been playing pretty bad lately, though. I will give them the benefit of the doubt, see if they can get it back turned around. I'm going to pick Wisconsin here to win. Next up, we got Virginia versus Boise State. Virginia's been hot, man. Virginia's been hot. I think that they would be a very, very scary 7 seed. I'm going to pick them here. I'm going to pick them here to get it done. Virginia moves on to the next round over Boise State. Now, I do like this Boise team. They've been playing a lot better once they got into Mountain West Conference play, which is a very, very strong conference, so that is impressive, especially on the road. Boise State's been playing great on the road, but Virginia's defense has been great, and Reese Beekman, one of the best defenders in college basketball, he's killing it. I like Isaac McNeely a lot. I think if Isaac McNeely can go on a tear and hit a bunch of threes, this Virginia team has potential to be a absolute sleeper come March Madness. Give me Virginia here to move on. Next up, we got Arizona versus Colgate, the toothpaste, making it back into the tournament once again. And last year, Arizona was a 2 seed. They lost to a 15 seed in Princeton. Will it happen again? They have a much different team, though. I do like this Arizona team. Caleb Love, Kylan Boswell in the backcourt. Studs. They have a lot of studs on this team. Omar Ballo down low. I'm going to take Arizona to not do what they did last year and beat a 15 seed. Move on to the second round. Yukon versus Clemson. This is a fun matchup because, like I said earlier, every defending national champion over the past 5 years or so have lost in the second round or before. So will this happen to Yukon this year, even though they are yet to even lose in 2024? They have not lost this year yet, technically. They lost the season, of course, but they have not lost this year. They're defending national champs. Alex Caravan's been on a tear. Tristan Newton has been a stud all season long. I just think UConn's too experienced, man. They're too experienced. They reloaded. I just like this Yukon team a lot. Cam Spencer has stepped right into that Jordan Hawkins shooter role and excelled while doing it. Like, I don't know. PJ Hall is a beast, man. But then you got to worry about who's going to guard Donovan Clingan. That's a whole nother thing you got to worry about. UConn's too experienced. I don't see them losing first or second round unless they get like an insane matchup in the second round. But I'm going to take UConn here to move on. Next up, we got South Florida versus Dayton. What a matchup in the second round. I love it, man. If we got this matchup in the second round, that would be amazing. I am going to take Dayton here to move on to the Sweet 16. I think that they would beat South Florida. But you never know. I think Dayton is definitely prone to losing. I think I had Dayton go pretty far in my last bracketology predictions. But they've shown some vulnerability since then. They lost twice in the city of Richmond to VCU and to Richmond, of course. And yeah, they've definitely shown some vulnerability. I think that they are beatable. I think it would not surprise me if a team like South Florida was able to pull it off. But I am going to pick Dayton here. Darren Holmes, too much of a stud, gets him to the Sweet 16 here. Next up, we got Kentucky versus Wisconsin. A lot of history between these two, especially that iconic Final Four game where Wisconsin makes it to the national championship with Frank the Tank Kaminsky and them boys. I think Wisconsin, such a good team, man. But I don't know. I think Kentucky's offense might be too much for him here. Like, I don't trust Wisconsin enough to get it done. Even though as much as I don't trust Kentucky's defense, I think a guy like Trey Mitchell, who's going to be a hustle player, his defense is going to be enough to at least give their offense a chance to go crazy in March Madness and get them to the Sweet 16. I'm going to take Kentucky to move on as our 6th seed. Next up, we do have Virginia versus Arizona, and this would be an awesome matchup. Virginia's defense versus Arizona's offense. Can Virginia hold them to like under 65 points? I mean, I don't know. Arizona's offense has been stellar this season, but they are also a team that has shown some vulnerability to lose. But mostly in conference play, like they didn't really show that in non-con play other than the loss to FAU, which was more of a shootout loss. It went to overtime. So, I don't know. I think Arizona is beatable. I like this Virginia team a lot as a 7th seed, and I'm going to take them. I'm going to take the Cavaliers to move on and defeat Arizona in the second round and move on to the Sweet 16. A Tony Bennett special holds Arizona to under 65 points. Isaac McNeely hits some crucial threes down the stretch. They move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we got Yukon versus Dayton. Darren Holmes is a beast, but how is he going to do up against Donovan Clingan and them beastly boys of Connecticut? I don't know. I don't think Dayton is going to beat Yukon. If Yukon makes it to that Sweet 16, they could go far, man. They're gonna go far unless they meet their match, man. I'm gonna take Yukon here. I'm gonna take Yukon. Next up, we got Kentucky versus Virginia. Virginia, once again, offense versus defense. Is Kentucky's defense is such a weakness, man. I'm going to take Virginia. I think this is a key matchup for them, a matchup Virginia would want. Tony Bennett, such a stud, underrated coach because of how often he lost early in March Madness, but he's won a national championship as well. I think that he could be due for a big run here. I think he has an underrated team who's getting hot right now and is an insanely great defensive team. I think that they could go on a little run here. I got them in the Elite 8. Next up, we got Yukon versus Virginia. Winner goes to the Final Four. Our 7 seed versus our 1 seed. And I think this is a tough draw for Virginia because I kind of wanted to make them go to a Final Four run as I started to see the pieces line up. However, I don't know if Yukon, if Yukon gets upset early, I could see Virginia making it to the Final Four. But I don't see them beating Yukon, man. I just think Tristan Newton, stud. You're going to have Reese Beekman be chasing around Cam Spencer more than likely. If they can find a way to stop this offense with Donovan Clingan, get him into foul trouble early maybe, and then slow down these shooters, Cam Spencer, Alex Caravan, it's going to be tough because you have the pick and roll you got to factor in. These guys are running around crazy, staying open from three. UConn's offense is just so amazing, man. It is hard to pick against them right now. I am going to go with UConn here to move on to the Final Four. And it's tough because I do feel like UConn kind of has an easy path here with the teams that got upset earlier on, like Wisconsin, Arizona. I think they have an easier path here. It's hard not to pick them and to go to the Final Four right there. Hard to, especially because Purdue and UConn have looked so clearly like the best two teams in college basketball this season. Very hard to not pick them and go to the Final Four right now. But let's get into some upsets because I feel like some are coming here in these next two regions. We got Houston versus Morehead State. And give me Houston here to move on. I don't think we'll see a 16-over-1 this year, but I said that last year and then we saw one. So I don't know. We'll see. I hope we do see one, but I don't think we will. Next up, we got Colorado State versus Michigan State. And as much as I love Isaiah Stevens and that Rams team, I just think that guys on this Michigan State team are going to turn up, especially AJ Hogard, Tyson Walker. Absolute beast, man. Give me Michigan State to move on to the round of 32 over Colorado State. Next up, we got Duke versus Richmond. We'll see our second 12-over-5 here. The Richmond Spiders got an upset, a couple of years ago over Iowa as a 12 seed. Can they do it again? Yeah, I don't think Duke is all that great, but I am going to pick them here to win this round. Next up, we got Alabama versus Samford. I do like the Samford team. I think I had Samford in my Sweet 16 or Elite 8 actually last bracket, which is crazy. And I do believe they have potential to get a win or two given the right matchups in March Madness. I think Alabama is being slept on this year. Mark Sears is definitely a guy that can make a lot of shots and turn up for March Madness. And I'm going to take Alabama here to move on to the next round. Roll Tide. Next up, we got Utah State versus either Mississippi State or Providence. I'm going to take Providence to defeat Mississippi State. And then I'm going to take Providence to defeat Utah State as well as a little 11-over-6 upset here in the first round. I love Devin Carter's game, man. Such a stud. If they get a matchup like this, I think he is going to lead them to a win in March Madness. Give me the Friars to move on to the next round. Iowa State versus Quinnipiac. Ooh, I could see Quinnipiac pull off an upset, but I love this Iowa State team, man. I love Tamin Lipsey. I think that he is such an underrated point guard. Absolutely nobody's talking about him. They have that guy, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but he's a freshman. He's a power forward. It's like Monovic, I want to say it. I'm probably not pronouncing that right, but his game is so fun to watch. I love it. Give me Iowa State to move on to the next round. New Mexico versus Utah. We haven't had any of our Mountain West teams get a win yet. Our first one is going to be New Mexico as our 7 seed. They are moving on as I love this New Mexico team. And I do think the Mountain West is superior to the Pac-12 this season. And if we get a Mountain West Pac-12 matchup, you best believe I'm probably taking Mountain West. New Mexico, absolutely loaded, man. Absolutely loaded guards. They got JT Toppin down low. Great guards on this New Mexico team. Give me the Lobos to move on here to the next round. Next up, we got Marquette versus Charleston. And I am going to take Marquette here to get it done. Even though Charleston's sneaky, we remember how good they were last year. if they can get back to the tournament again. Much lower seed this year, as I think that they were actually, were they a 7 or a 10 seed last year? I want to say. Yeah, they got a pretty good seed last year, though. Lost in the first round. I think Marquette would handle them. I think Tyler Kolek has been on absolute tear lately. Cam Jones as well. You got guys like Stevie Mitchell, Agudaro. It's going to be too much for Charleston, man. Gimme Marquette. Next up, we got Houston versus Michigan State. And I'm not going to lie to you guys. I think I might have an upset right here because Houston has great defense. They're really well coached. But if Michigan State can turn it up at the right time, like I think they probably will, I love this Michigan State team. I just don't know if they have the front court to really take it really far. But I think they might have enough to pull off this upset, make it to the Sweet 16. Give me Michigan State. I think A.J. Hoggard and Tyson Walker outplay Jamal Shead and L.J. Cryer. That's the key difference. Give me Sparty to move on to Sweet 16, pull off a 9-1 upset here in the second round. Next up, we got Duke versus Alabama. Key matchup, Cal Filipowski versus Grant Nelson. Going to be a very fun one to watch. I think that guys like McCain, definitely an X factor for this game. Mark Sears is going to be an absolute stud, 100%. I could see Duke going far, man, but I am going to take Bama to beat them 4 over a 5 seed. Give me Alabama to move on and defeat Duke. Mark Sears takes over in this one. Pretty much. Mark Sears takes over. Alabama moves on. Next up, we got Providence versus Iowa State. Taman Lipsey versus Devin Carter. Please, I want to see that matchup. Talk about two underrated players that are absolutely going to light it up and have potential to take their teams pretty far during March Madness. I could 100% see it. And I am thinking I am going to take Iowa State in this matchup. I love this Iowa State team. It's going to be a tough one for them. I think Providence is going to be in a very close game with them if they're on. Give me the Cyclones to move on here, though. Next up, we got New Mexico versus Marquette. This is such a fun matchup because I almost feel like Marquette is probably the better version than New Mexico, which I hate because I wanted to have New Mexico go pretty far. But I just feel like, man, they got a very tough draw here. They got a very tough draw. I wouldn't count them out in this one. I just think if Tyler Kolek's game is on, Cam Jones is on, it is going to be tough to beat them right here. I kind of want to pull the trigger on New Mexico, though. I really want to. I just don't know if I can do it. I just think Agudaro versus JT Toppin is going to be a key matchup. I think Agudaro wins that. These awesome New Mexico guards. I'm going to take Marquette. I think Marquette is a better version of what New Mexico is. I just think I want New Mexico to go far because I think they're great. I just couldn't do it. Man. I couldn't do it. I think Marquette gets it done. Next up, we got Michigan State versus Alabama. And that's a tough one, man. That's a tough one. Does Michigan... If they can get past Houston, they could definitely beat Alabama. I don't know if I trust Alabama to go any further than Sweet 16, given their history under Nate Oates so far. They seem to lose, Sweet 16 or before. I think I'm trusting Izzo here to get it done. Give me Michigan State to move on to the Elite 8 as our 9 seed. Next up, we got Iowa State versus Marquette. Iowa State versus Marquette. That would be a fun matchup, man. I think Marquette might be too much for him. And it sucks because I almost wish they had Sean Jones because they were like a sleeper for me to win the entire national championship. Without him, it's going to be a little bit tougher. They could still be Final Four level good. I don't know if they can win the whole thing. But we have Michigan State versus Marquette. Rematch from last year's round of 32 game where Michigan State won. A lot of familiar faces will be going up against each other again with a little bit much higher stakes as a trip to the Final Four is on the line. And wow, will Marquette lose to Michigan State 2 years in a row? Honestly, I think they might. I am going to go with Michigan State to get it done and move on to the Final Four as a 9-seed sleeper making it in. So far we have Purdue, Michigan State, Yukon as our Final Four. 2 Big Ten teams making it. I could see it happening. I don't feel great about that. Probably not going to be a repeat of what happens in later videos, but the way the brackets lined up, I could see it happening. And I like Michigan State as a sleeper, as I feel like a lot of people probably will. Sparty in the Final Four. Next up, we got North Carolina versus Eastern Washington. Give me UNC. Too good. RJ Davis, too good. Armando Bacot's starting to turn up, which if he does, North Carolina can definitely win the national championship. If Armando Bacot turns up, look out for the heels. Next up, we got Texas versus Nebraska. I feel like this is a fitting 8-9 matchup. Both these teams, they've been up and down this year. I'm going to trust Max Abmas and this Texas team here to move on. Next up, we got St. Mary's versus Grand Canyon. And I do like this St. Mary's team a lot, but I love Grand Canyon. And this is going to be my second 12/5 of the video. Give me Grand Canyon. I love this mid-major this year. The Antelopes can definitely do some damage this year. I think that they could potentially make it to the Sweet 16 given the right matchups. Give me Grand Canyon to move on. Next up, we got Baylor versus UC Irvine. I could see UC Irvine pulling it off, but Scott Drew is an excellent coach. Give me Baylor here to move on in this one. Next up, we do have San Diego State versus either Washington State or Texas A&M. I think Texas A&M wins that matchup against Washington State in the first 4. And I think that they could potentially upset San Diego State. I mean, that is going to be a fantastic game. An absolute fantastic game. However, I just don't think that I can pull the trigger on it. I am going to go with San Diego State here to move on. I mean, they have been so good, so great defensively. Give me San Diego State. Give me San Diego State to move on. Illinois versus Louisiana Tech. Another fun matchup here. Louisiana Tech coming out of their league. I think Illinois, this could be the year that they do a little bit of damage. I don't think they're going to get upset first round, especially not with that matchup. I'm going to take Illinois to move on. They could do some damage. I don't know. Given the right matchups, They have some hoopers on that team, some shooters. But they've had that before. Probably better teams than they have right now and lost pretty early. So next up, we do have Texas Tech versus Seton Hall. Texas Tech is definitely a team that I could see as a sleeper to go far. I think Pop Isaacs is a guy that can turn up for March Madness 100%. I love Joe Toussaint as he was a former WVU player. Absolutely hope the best for him. I think they have a great backcourt. I just worry a little bit about their front court. Seton Hall is Kadary Richmond is an absolute stud and is a sleeper and could lead his team far. I think I am going to go with Seton Hall. I just think Kadary Richmond is such a stud, man. I'm going to take Seton Hall here to move on. Next up, we got Tennessee versus High Point. And I'm going to take Tennessee. I think this is one of the best Tennessee teams that we have seen in a very, very long time. If Rick Barnes is going to get it done with a Tennessee team as far as making it far, making it to the Elite Eight, Final Four, this got to be the year. He's Dalton Gannett, who is absolutely killing it. He has stud guards, veteran guards in Vescovi, Zakai Ziegler, who need to turn up. Zakai Ziegler has a little bit. They need to turn up. Now they have prone to being beat, especially by the better teams in college basketball. But I think they'll get past High Point and make it here to the next round. Next up, we got UNC versus Texas. Now, this is an interesting one because the thing about Texas is they actually do have some pretty good bigs. Dylan DeSue, Caden Shedrick, that could cause some issues for RJ Davis, or for Armando Bacot. But then Max Asmus, he could be right there with RJ Davis. Now, this season he has not been playing anywhere near that level, but then they still have Tyrese Hunter as well. Harrison Ingram is going to be the X factor for this UNC team, and I could see North Carolina going very far. I think Texas is an interesting matchup for him, though, because I could see Texas being able to pull this one off and upset North Carolina early, and I almost want to pull the trigger on it. Something's holding me back. Something's holding me back from doing it, and I'm going to take North Carolina. I just think Texas on paper has the team to be like, okay, they match up kind of well against North Carolina. That could be a potential upset right there. But then you look on the court and you're like, this Texas team is not going to beat North Carolina. Like, the way that they are playing, I don't think Rodney Terry is as good as we thought he was from going to the Elite Eight in his first season as the interim coach last year. He got the head coaching spot, as I think he deserved it 100%. But this North Carolina team's hungry. I think that they can make it. They can go on a run. Give me North Carolina here. Grand Canyon versus Baylor. Very fun matchup. I think, this isn't a horrible matchup for Grand Canyon, honestly. I want to see some double-digit seeds make it a little bit far. We're rocking with Grand Canyon. We're rocking with Grand Canyon here to move on to the next round. Next up, we got San Diego State versus Illinois. And I think San Diego State's defense is going to be amazing in this matchup. Illinois could be great, though. I think the key matchup here is 100% is 100% Jaden Ledee versus Coleman Hawkins. Whoever can win that battle, I think will win this game. And I'm not going to lie, I think that Jaden Ledee wins that battle, and I'm going to take San Diego State to move on to the Sweet 16. Very experienced team. You think they added Reese Waters from USC. Very, very good team. I like them a lot. Give me the Aztecs to move on to the Sweet 16. Next up, we got Seton Hall versus Tennessee. And like I said, this could be the year that Tennessee could go pretty far. Kadira Richmond could put a wrench in that. I think Tennessee's defense is going to be able to play great enough to be able to defeat Seton Hall here in this matchup. But Shaheen Holloway, I'm so excited to see him and play in March. So excited for him to coach in March as Seton Hall as head coach, because we saw what he did. We saw what he did at St. Peter's, leading them to the Elite Eight. So excited to see him back in March as a coach. I could see some magic happening, especially with Kadary Richmond, but I think Dalton Knecht is a stud and could lead his team to go far. So give me Tennessee here to move on. Next up, we have San Diego State versus Tennessee. And man, this one's tough, man. This one's tough because, like I said, I think I could see Tennessee going pretty far this year, but San Diego State has proved it, man. San Diego State has proved it, and they're bringing back a lot of guys, and guys who have been improved this year, been improved players this year. Two great defenses. Honestly, I feel better about San Diego State. I feel better about San Diego State in this matchup. I'm going to take them here. Next up, we got North Carolina versus Grand Canyon. A fun matchup. I think this is where Grand Canyon's run comes to an end, though. I think North Carolina is going to be way too much for him. RJ Davis is going to be on a tear. Armando Bacot, they're hungry. They want that natty. They want to get there. And I'm going to take North Carolina here to move on to the next round. Next up, we got North Carolina versus San Diego State. Teams that have been here. San Diego State made it all the way, was a runner-up last year. The year before that, North Carolina was the runner-up. They've made it far, and they both want a chance to go back to the Final Four this season, and this would be an unbelievable matchup. I think RJ Davis, Armando Bacot, Harrison Ingram is going to be playing amazing for them to get this far. Cormac Ryan, of course. They have some studs on this team. I like this North Carolina team a lot. As much as I like Jaden Ledee, I feel like North Carolina might have too much offense for them, and I am going to take North Carolina here to win. Now, I know I do have 3 1 seeds making it to the Final Four, and I don't like that. I don't like to. If you guys are not new to the channel, you guys know I never do this. But right now, I feel like the 1 seeds are pretty strong this year. They're really strong, and to be honest, like, this has happened before, and we haven't seen that in a while. Where even 2, I don't think any 1 seeds made it last year, and it's been a while since even 2 1 seeds made it far to the Final Four. But 3 has happened before. It's been a while. It definitely can happen. And I think these 1 seeds are very strong. Purdue, Yukon, North Carolina. If one of these teams were to lose a little bit earlier, I think maybe it would be Purdue. But yeah, I think all these teams have potential to go to the Final Four. I do like the teams I'm seeing in here. From what I'm seeing on the court, all of these teams do have that potential. Michigan State, more of a sleeper. They haven't shown the consistency to do it, but they could definitely get there. But yeah, guys, as far as the seeding, I don't love it. I don't love having 3 1 seeds in, but it definitely could happen. So let's get into our Final Four matchups. We do have Purdue versus Michigan State. Big Ten battle. Who on Michigan State are they going to put on Zach Edey? Sissoko, Xavier Booker. Like, the front court is not that great for Michigan State, but I think Sissoko is a tough enough player. If he can stay out of foul trouble against Zach Edey, and these guys like Carson Cooper can come in, play some hard, valuable minutes against Edey. I think I really like Michigan State's guards going up against Purdue's guards, as far as the likes of Tyson Walker being on Braden Smith. I think Tyson Walker eats that matchup up, man. Then you got Jaden Atkins, AJ Hoggard. Come on, they're definitely. Lance Jones is going to be great. I don't trust Fletcher Lawyer against whoever he's guarding out of those 3, and he's gonna have to guard one of them. Like, come on. Michigan State's front court does worry me 100%. But I'm going to take Michigan State. I'm going to take Michigan State to upset Purdue here and make it to the national championship game in a Big Ten spoiler. They knock out Purdue. Purdue's chance to pull off what Virginia did in 2019 from losing to a 16 seed, and then winning the national championship the year after, ends in the Final Four to a Big Ten foe in Michigan State and Tom Izzo. Next up, we got Yukon versus North Carolina, and wow, this one feels like a national championship level game, and it is. Like, both these teams could definitely win the national championship this year, which is insane, and it would be an awesome matchup. I mean, Armando Bacot versus Donovan Clingan. You got Tristan Newton versus RJ Davis is going to be a ton of fun. You got Cormac Ryan, who is going to be going up against Cam Spencer. That's going to be fun. Harrison Ingram is going to have to be the guy in this game, I believe, and I think he can do it. I think he's going to be that hustle player. He's going to be making great defensive plays. He's going to be a help on the rebounds there with Bacot, helping him get boards there with Bacot over Clingan. I think Bacot can outplay Clingan too. Like, I definitely feel that way. I do have to take in consideration Yukon also has their Harrison Ingram type player in Alex Caravan, and he's arguably better. I mean, I want to know down below in the comments, who would you rather have on your team, Harrison Ingram or Alex Caravan? I think it's close. I think these two teams are close. And sadly, I wanted to pick North Carolina here. I think the more and more I think about it, I think Yukon can win this game. I just think, even though I do think Armando Bacot will turn up for March Madness, and he's already starting to turn up right now, I think Donovan Clingan is still going to, be there. He's still going to be a force. He's still going to be grabbing boards. I kind of like Alex Caravan to possibly win that matchup over Harrison Ingram. And I think Tristan Newton can play some great defense on RJ Davis and not stop him, but slow him down a little bit. And then you take in consideration, I like Cam Spencer over Cormac Ryan. Like, give me Yukon in this matchup. And moving on to the national championship once again. We got Yukon. We have Michigan State. We got Hurley versus Izzo. I mean, I just think that Dan Hurley's offensive scheme and really his defensive scheme is great too, because he's got some great defenders on this team. His offensive scheme is so good for college basketball right now. This is going to be an absolute banger of a game. Don't get me wrong. Tyson Walker in the Final Four in a national championship game is going to go off. Like, don't get me wrong. Also, AJ Hoggard is going to be a beast of a playmaker, beast of a driver to the rack. Then you take in consideration, does Michigan State, it's going to be their problem. Do they have the front court of a national championship winning team? Given the right matchups, if they didn't have to go up against a team like Yukon or North Carolina in the championship, maybe they could get done. If these teams get upset, it is possible. There is a path for it. But going up against Yukon, I think it's going to be too much for them. It would be a close game, 100%, but I think I love Yukon's offensive scheme where they have the pick and rolls. They have everybody moving around. They're shooters. Cam Spencer moving around. They got Alex Caravan who can shoot it from deep. If you want to do, you can spot up 2-3 feet behind the 3-point line and just chill back there wide open. He's going to shoot that absolute money. You got to worry about that. And then you take in consideration, Yukon still, once again this year, have one of the best depths in college basketball. I didn't even mention Stephon Castle's name this entire video, who is a freshman who is an absolute stud. And I think Yukon, I've been saying this, I think I had them win this one last time I did my bracket predictions too. I think Yukon might be our first back-to-back champion since Florida in 2006, 2007, or it was 2007, 2008, one of those two. And I think it's 2006, 2007, because 2008 was Kansas. when they beat Derrick Rose and the Memphis Tigers. So, yeah, that is going to do it for this one. Yukon back-to-back champs is my prediction right now. Let me know what you guys think about the bracket. I don't like to have 3 1 seeds in the Final Four, but it's happened before. It's happened before, a couple of times. Like, it can happen. I don't love it, but I do believe that, North Carolina, Yukon, Purdue, very, very strong teams right now. Very, very strong teams right now. It's hard to pick against them, and I do have Yukon winning it all. So that's going to do it for this video. Subscribe for more college basketball content, and thank you so much for watching.